Hello and welcome to the Modern Contractor podcast. I'm your host, Jon Dlouhy, head of marketing at OneClick. Today, we have an exciting topic to discuss: how remodeling contractors can navigate private equity sales and actionable steps to prepare for a potential exit. There's been an increasing trend of private equity acquisitions in the home services space, and we've got two familiar faces here to help us dig deeper. Ryan Lococo, CEO at OneClick, and Taylor Haynes, COO at OneClick. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, John. Great to be here again.
Taylor, let's dive right in. Would you mind starting by giving a snapshot of your private equity experience as we set the stage for some actionable steps for remodeling contractors?
Yeah, absolutely. So immediately prior to OneClick Contractor, Ryan and I, we actually met working at a private equity that's headquartered here in Dallas, where I live. So I've worked in private equity directly, but probably more importantly in my mind is that I've also been on both the buy side and the sell side on privately held businesses. Small privately held businesses, which is essentially all of the folks in our audience that are in the remodeling space, and so as a part of my background, I have engaged with lots and lots of business owners, speaking to them about the possibility of buying their business and or co-investing, buying into their business, partnering with them. A number of different ways that you can go about that. And so that experience has been very informative to me to learn about what it's like to sit across the table from a business owner and have a very important conversation about the potential of acquiring their business.
Thanks, Taylor. Ryan, would you mind jumping in and sharing a little snapshot of your private equity experience?
Yeah, thanks, John. So mine was a bit different from Taylor's. So I came up through a very kind of varied background in the management consulting and then into private equity. And so I know it both from large public companies where I did a bunch of large scale public M&A and ran BD and M&A organizations at that scale, and then came down to the lower middle market and participated in smaller organizations, call it anywhere from $5 to $50 million in check size. So talking with both founders or groups of investors and actually participating and being part of that diligence process and valuation process and understanding the questions that we would always ask founders and investor groups of their businesses as well. So I've kind of seen it at both scales. Interestingly enough, the difference between a multi-billion-dollar deal and something that's $25 million, the mechanics are the same. Like, you're actually doing the same process, way more expensive lawyers and a whole lot more people doing stuff. But at the end of the day, the process is very, very similar. So I've kind of done the gamut, about $8 billion worth of deals in my career. So kind of I've seen it all and seen all the structures, but love to get involved with more of them. And so excited to talk to you about it today, John.
I'm sure both of you have some interesting stories, so we'll dig into those later. So just help the audience. I'm not sure the level of understanding across the board. I'm sure some of our remodeling contractors, are experienced in this and well versed, and others this is new to them. They're getting contacted by people and they don't know what to do, right? And so, just could you help us, Ryan, just understand, the private equity landscape today?
Sure.
Versus traditional ways of acquisition, right? Family transfer, employee transfer,
sure.
Selling to a competitor versus private equity.
Yeah. What's interesting about the private equity world is it's changing. It's dynamic in that what they're looking for, how much they're willing to pay, and kind of their level of excitement by different sectors in space changes, quite a bit. 12 months ago, it was a very kind of tough time in the private equity world. Now we're seeing a trend back, moving back up and valuations creeping up. So really if you think about kind of the difference between the two, a private equity transaction, it sounds kind of scary and crazy, but all it is a group of investors that have pooled their money and now they are looking to deploy that money and buy businesses, usually by size or sector, and versus something like an employee transfer or an ESOP where you slowly sell your shares back to your employees, or you could sell to a competitor, like a strategic transaction where you're selling a business to another business versus a financial buyer, from the private equity side. On the private equity side, the thing that matters to them is return. They're buying a business because they've seen historic performance and they're buying, growth in cash flow. So what they're interested in is they hold a business anywhere from 3 to 7 years, and then they sell it. And they're going to sell it to either another private equity firm, or they're going to sell it to a strategic company, a larger company that's buying them up. So that time horizon is the thing that's really different between a private equity buyer and maybe someone else, because they're going to want to understand how you're going to grow the business in the period of time that they're holding it. And so the more you have the business, what I call buttoned up, ready for them to take a look at it, the more you'll get for the business and the easier the deal will go. I know we'll probably, we should chat about that a bit as well. I don't know, Taylor, what how do you see it as well?
Well, I think, one interesting point in our market is that, I don't know, roughly 10 years ago, private equity was really not pushing into this industry in any significant kind of way. I don't know exactly when that started. So I'm sure that we could talk to some of our friends in the industry and they could pinpoint almost exactly when it really began. But doing roll-ups in different industries is not new. It's been around for certainly at least decades in the private equity structure. And private equity, like just about any other industry, there are kind of flavor of the month sort of things that certain parts of the industry get hot, and there's good reasons for that. And right now, remodeling is coming into favor. I would say it has not peaked, but I would say that it is continuing to come into favor with private equity. Whereas some of some other industries may have peaked and kind of are not as much in the private equities aren't pursuing them as hard right now. So it's a good time for folks in our industry to be considering this and to be getting educated on it.
And I think I'm going to build on that too. Made me think of something, right? That why is it in vogue, and what is it that they're looking for? I think. Private equity firms are always looking for really large markets that have good growth economics, or the reason that the business is growing. And if we look out there, especially in the residential side, you have tons of homes being built. You have interest rates moving up, so switching of homes becomes more expensive. So you have a lot of repair and remodel work that is in the space. So you see growth of the overarching sector, as well as specific to this, into the construction space being really, really hot. It's also resilient. At the end of the day, if interest rates go up, people are doing more remodeling. Interest rates move down, there's more new construction, and on that side of the house, and then obviously insurance is happening all the time. So I think all of these create a really large and growing market that's interesting to private equities. And I think to Taylor's point as well, historically it was viewed as, a business that wasn't very sophisticated. And now we're seeing the best players in the space implement really sophisticated ways of getting customers, marketing to those customers, selling to those customers, deploying their resources, their people, their tools, their trades in the market. And so it's creating efficiency at scale that hasn't been, seen in this space in a while. I think private equity is looking at that and realizing there's tons of upside, and that trend's not going anywhere in the near term. So I think it's another thing that kind of brought to mind.
How are private equity firms, valuing remodeling business? You mentioned growth, right? Is it strictly, profit? Or are there other variable? I'm sure there's multiple variables, right? But are there key indicators or benchmarks that certain private equity firms are looking for?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I for all you guys, folks are out there that private equity firms are reaching out, and you hear people talk about multiples and what that all means. Really what they're looking at is they're looking at cash flow, or they call EBITDA, right? They're looking at your cash flow before taxes and depreciation and amortization. So what your business is cash flowing, and they put a multiple to that. So for example, if someone says they're selling their business for 5 times multiple, it's 5 times the prior year's cash flow, right? So if your business made $1 million and it's selling it at 5 times, you're selling it for $5 million. Understanding what businesses are selling for by your vertical, when people give you a call and want to buy your company, is important. Taylor and I talk about this all the time, where a lot of founders might have a view that their company is worth X dollars, and it may not be tied to reality. And the analogy is your neighbor sells a house for $500,000. And you're like, well, you know what? Mine's worth $1 million. Well, it probably isn't, right? It's worth what people are willing to buy, and usually that's predicated on the size and the neighborhood and everything else. Same thing with businesses. So understanding what your business is actually worth, and talking to some, I call safe ears about that, I think can be helpful in the process to set expectations.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That piece about educating yourself, understanding the reality that there are prices that the market agrees upon, and everybody wants to, when you're thinking about selling your business, everybody wants to sell for top dollar, and you should, but you also have to realize that having unrealistic expectations, Ryan, to your point, if you think you can sell your house that's very similar to the guy on the corner, and you think you can sell it for twice as much, it's just probably not going to happen. In a past life, I had a conversation with a business owner. He was interested. It was actually 2 partners, but one of the partners was older and was interested in selling. And I had a good relationship with them. They wanted to sell the business to me. They wanted me to come in as a partner. And when we got down to brass tacks and started talking about the value of the business, or the value of 50% of the business in this case, the partner that wanted to sell threw out a number. He said, I'd like to get $10 million for it. It's a nice round number. Sounds great when you're thinking about the boat that you want to buy and the vacations you want to take in retirement and all of those kinds of things. And we weren't able to bridge the gap of him. He did not understand. He felt like I was, essentially just making my number up and just kind of, nickel and diming him, when the reality was there's no way that we could get investors, get a bank loan, get, no underwriting in anybody's right mind would have seen that business as being worth $20 million.
Right.
The performance was not there. So ultimately, the deal fell apart. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. And funny, you mentioned the underwriting process. Most of these, it's a topic that's probably worth spending a couple minutes on. Most of these transactions, people come in with money to buy your business. Like I said, that $5 million business, most people don't say, here's a $5 million check, take care, and we're off for the races. Most of the time, there's a couple things that come with it, right? They usually are putting debt on the business. That means there's another party that has to look at that and say, okay, it actually is worth that much. I'm willing to give you debt. The same way when you buy a house. I don't know if any of you guys have been part of the housing boom craze, where you try to buy a house and it doesn't get appraised for the right amount. You're only going to get a loan for so much of it. Similar situation with debt in a company to a certain extent. And I think the things that owners need to be thinking about is what impacts that value, right? So people come to me and say, what is my business worth? Well, your business is of course worth what someone's willing to pay for it, but you can maximize what that looks like by doing a few things before you start engaging with a private equity firm, and looking at your people, your systems, your processes. And at the end of the day, when we look at buying businesses, or when we did look at buying businesses historically, I want to make sure it's not a lifestyle business. I want to make sure that the business isn't tied up with the business owner so closely that when the business owner leaves, the business stops, right? And so, putting things in place to ensure that isn't the case and to prove out that the business is bigger than you will drive outsized value. So then there's a pathway for them to take it over and take it from 5 to 50 or whatever they might be taking to.
Taylor, what are some other things that folks can do, given your lens from a private equity, side, to help get your house in order? Ryan touched on operational efficiency, even the right team. Like what are some actionable steps that you've seen successful companies go through?
In any one of these processes, there's going to be a lot of focus on the financials, on the financial reporting, having those clean and accurate and readily available. That is important. A lot of small and mid-sized business.
Just put him up on your lap.
Yeah, show the audience what's.
He's only 80 pounds. It's fine.
Sit.
I mean, it wouldn't be a great podcast if we didn't have a couple of interruptions.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Let me ask you. I'll ask you again, Taylor.
Yeah.
Chain him to the tree outside.
We're recording, so don't sit. You good?
If you want a tail in the background,
I think he's fine.
All right.
I'll ask you again.
I'm good.
Yeah, Taylor, what are some additional steps that contractors can take to, before engaging with private equity? Ryan touched on operational efficiency, team members being able to take the business and keep it rolling. What else should contractors be thinking about?
A couple of things that come to mind. The very first thing and the biggest thing is going to be ready. Eventually, somebody's going to get so deep into your financials that they're gonna keep digging until you cry uncle. So having those financials in clean, straightforward, accurate, readily available. That is a critical part of this. And in my experience working with small business owners, small privately held business owners, a lot of times they want to cut corners with their finance folks and maybe get a good deal there. And I'm not suggesting that someone that's running a $5 or $10 million business should be paying Wall Street CFO level salaries, but you need to have good, clean, accurate financials, and you're probably going to have to pay market prices to get that, and that's a good investment. The second thing that I think of is really tight SOPs, standard operating procedures. Have your processes, your business processes in every functional area of your business clear, have them in writing, make sure that your whole team understands them and works towards them. Not that they are written in stone. They obviously can be, revised and improved upon, but everybody needs to understand what the SOPs in their area are. And also in the adjacent area, the handoff, just like in sports, anytime you throw a football or hand off a football, you're at greater risk of a fumble during that transition. So same thing, when we're going from marketing to sales, we're going from sales to production, that handoff, exactly what that looks like you need to have an SOP around it, and you need to follow that SOP. You need to follow that SOP every time. Then the third area that I think of, and I think that really all of this comes down to the third area, and that is the team. It's all about people. And if you've got the right people in the right places, they're going to help you with your financials. They're going to help you with getting your SOPs in order and following those SOPs. So that's the three areas that I think of.
And I think it's absolutely right. And a question people might have is on the financial side, like, what is it that I should expect? There's three things going back 3 years, right? Generally speaking, they want a accrual-based P&L. So a lot of people are running their business on a cash basis. You have to move that over to an accrual-based P&L. All your balance sheet and tax returns, right? So they're going to want to understand that you're making the money that you're making, that you're forecasting the business the way you think you should be forecasting it, and that you're not doing anything crazy with your taxes. We all know, right? When you own a business, especially a small business, my car's in there, my cell phone's in there. There's a couple meals here and there that are in there. That happens. It's on every company we've ever looked at collectively. There are things like that are going through the business that maybe, let's call it fringe expenses. That's okay. Get ready for those questions. Get ready for them to ask if it's a business expense or not, and it should be in there. Don't be upset. It happens. They're gonna take that out. They're gonna look at that to say that's either part of what should be or shouldn't be, because they want to understand how much cash flow is the business actually making. I think to the other point Taylor talked about on the SOP, that plays to that lifestyle business. If you don't have those in place, how do I know if I buy your company that anyone knows what to do other than you? And so I think if you're trying to prove to a private equity firm that the business is a real business, it's stable, growing, and it doesn't require the brilliance of the owner. I think that's it's critical as you think to sell your company and how you can kind of best maximize that the value of your business when you're talking to private equity firms.
Ryan, for those that are listening that might not know, and some of these words sound big and intimidating, what is accrual-based accounting, and if I don't even know what that means, what should I do about it?
Perfect. Any decent financial planner or an accountant should be able to help you with, an accountant should be able to help you with your books, right? And all it means is on a cash-based, P&L or cash-based accounting, when dollars come in and dollars come out, you're showing it in that month that money's coming in and coming out of the door. Versus an accrual takes into consideration things like accounts payable or when you're paying people and when you're receiving money. And so you are recognizing, or if you sell something to a customer in 1 month, you're recognizing that revenue in a month. It isn't necessarily when the cash comes in the door. So it gives you a better indication of when dollars and cost are actually hitting a business versus not. And any accountant should be able to true that up for you. Good question, though. That's a really good question.
It's Ryan's love language, Taylor. So give him the opportunity.
That's right. Give me an Excel model.
So you touched on a number of actionable steps, right, to prepare remodeling contractor. I think this is a good segue into OneClick, right? What did you guys see? Just highlighted a few items with financials, with team members, with operational procedures. What did you guys see in OneClick that made you guys kind of take the leap? And what have you learned from that as well?
I'll take a swing at it because I think we saw similar things, but. The same reason private equity firms are looking at the space in general is why we thought it was interesting, right? It is OneClick helps all of these types of businesses become more efficient, sell more, do it faster, and professionalize your company for whatever you want to do, whether you want to keep it and make more money or whether you want to make more money and then sell it for more money later on. So we saw it as a great tool in a really big and growing space. I think at at the high level, that's what I think was interested us. But we've been around the block enough to realize that a great business with the wrong people is just a bad business. And we got to know the founder of One Click, Dale Thornberry, the team that he put together, and got to know everyone in the organization and realized that there was something really special here. Good culture, having a lot of fun. And so you're building something with the right people in a growing space and actually helping, business owners grow and do more with their business. We thought that was pretty exciting. I don't know, Taylor, what jazzed you up?
Yeah. I think you hit all the high points that were intriguing to me. I mean, the backstory, John, is that we were looking in a bunch of different industries, and I've got a buddy that was in the roofing business, and so I went to him, and I literally knew nothing about what the software or tech stack opportunities might be in this space, but I knew that roofing is a good business, and so I sat down with him and asked him to walk me through how their business worked and walk me through what are the different software tools that you're using that are helping you guys to be successful. And he was a very successful roofer, so that was a great initial intro, and from that, One Click was we pretty quickly, kind of connected with One Click through different folks in this industry. So, yeah, it's been a great experience, and it's been a great opportunity to get back to our roots as operators and in an industry that the timing is excellent, a lot of upside, a lot of potential, and a lot of just great folks that are helping homeowners out. So one of the things that I love is I love entrepreneurs, and I love working to help them grow their business and hit their goals. And that's something that we're able to do every day here.
It also makes me think of something, Taylor, right? Which could be interesting to people that are watching and listening to this, which is, how do you, it's two guys that didn't own a roofing company, came into a technology business to help roofers. So not everyone from this space is horrible, right? So there are people that know how to buy and sell companies and have come from a variety of different industries that are now interested in this space. But how do you separate? Because they're like anything else. There's great ones, there's middle of the road, and there's less great ones, right? And so how do you separate and differentiate a private equity firm that's coming after you, or several of them that are coming after you? You're selling your business and you're out there, and suddenly you have 12 people that are talking to you about your company. How do you know what's good, bad, or indifferent? And Lord knows we've been on both sides of that, right? I think from my perspective, it is, do you like these guys? Do you click with these guys? Do you want to have a beer with them? Because you're going to be going through a real tough process. And if you're going to stay on and help them run it for some period of time, they're going to be, they're going to be your boss, right? In a lot of instances, or a really large shareholder, right? Either one. And so you want to be able to get through the good times and bad times with them. How they think about the space, your mission, is it aligned with what your vision of the business is? If you're going to be staying on, is there a legacy that you want to make sure that moves forward? The people that have been working for you for years, you want to make sure they're getting taken care of, and they're getting taken care of by working for somebody that is aligned with the way you see the world. There's lots of private equity firms out there. Some of them are going to be really focused on driving down efficiency. Some will be really focused on how do we grow the business and put more marketing dollars to play. So they're going to ask you a bunch of questions. Ask them a bunch of questions. What are some how have you grown other companies? How have you worked with prior founders? What type of resources can you bring to the table if you buy this business to help us grow faster than we're growing right now? So you can do your due diligence on them as well. And that's okay. Like, do not be shy, because it's going to matter. Right. I think that also plays to things, such as how are they going to buy your business? And not only are they the right people, but are they coming with the right structure? So I said things like, a minority investor, or they're going to be your boss. They could come in and say, all the way from here's a check, thank you, goodbye, you've done a great job, we don't want to see you again, all the way to we want to buy 10% of your company and we're going to give you a piece of that. Please keep working, but we'll bring resources to bear to help you accelerate it. And every flavor in between. So understanding things like how much of the business you're going to sell, at what price, are they going to put debt on the company? Is there an earnout, meaning they buy a piece of the business, but there's some cash afterwards if you hit certain growth milestones or profitability milestones or some kind of goal? They'll say, I'll give you X amount of dollars now, but if you do these 3 things, there'll be payments associated with each one of those. You can structure it however you want. And thinking through what's interesting to you and what your goals are, if you're wanting to walk away, or if you're wanting to participate, or if you're needing help, that plays into who you should be partnering with, and ask a bunch of questions.
Yeah. As you said, we've been on both sides of this, so we've seen it and understand sort of the pros and cons. I think that's a big one, and I think that I kind of would relate this to a job interview. And as you get more senior in your career, you go into a job interview with your own list of questions, and and it's truly a two-way conversation. If you're considering selling a business, it should absolutely be a two-way conversation. And you should have a series of in-depth questions. And sometimes the hardest question is, how do I know if this, to trust this? At the end of the day, these types of agreements a lot of it comes down to trust. And I think the biggest thing there is that past performance is the best indicator of future behavior. And so go to some of the other folks that they've done business with, have an offline conversation reach out through LinkedIn or through your personal network and talk to people that have sold their business to them.
Great call.
And, potentially worked with them for years and get that, get the real deal, get the scoop on these folks that you're considering a big transaction and potentially years of future relationship with. Yeah.
I think that's right. And a question that might be in people's mind is, okay, sounds interesting. Sounds like there's a lot of puzzle pieces to this, to do all of it. So how do I get started? I know I don't want to. Most people aren't going to do this indefinitely, right? Whatever they're doing right now, they're either going to. You're either going to sell it or hold on to it for a period of time. You're going to sell the business at some point, or go out of business. There's only a couple things you can do with the company, right? So when should I start planning this? And it isn't something that you're going to do in 8 weeks and 3 months. I think you really need to be thoughtful and have at minimum a 6-month planning period, and it could be longer than that depending on the size of your business, where you want it to go, who you want it to sell to, how far away you are from being in a spot that you have all your SOPs and your books and everything. But at least 6 months to go through and evaluate the next steps that need to happen. Once you evaluate that, the best businesses out there aren't on pen and paper. They are not that time is come and gone. Even businesses in these types of trades, they are becoming more and more technologically advanced, and that's what is becoming expected on the private equity side. So doing a deep analysis, and do I have the right people in the right roles with the right skill set? Are they following the right processes and SOPs? And what can I do to maximize the profitability of that entire system with the right technology? So when I go to market, I get top dollar for my business. Not only that, but it's about selling, and it's about getting the most money you can, but also it's not always great. There are slow times. And if you do this now, you can take share. You can endure the tougher times, the lean times much, much better than you could if you don't go through this process. So regardless if you're going to sell, it's a good thing to do anyway. It's just good business practices in general.
So Ryan, let's make this a little bit more real for folks that are listening. I think we talked a little bit about valuation, but we didn't use anything very specific. I don't think, but I think that let's speak to the smaller operator. Maybe they've kept the business at a certain size because it was no need to grow it. In their case, they may be thinking, well, gosh, all this private equity talk sounds great, but I don't know how it applies to me. There are opportunities to sell businesses that are smaller, that are what we might refer to as subscale. The reality is you're going to probably get a smaller multiple in that case. You're not
great
getting
point.
as much, as many multiples of your cash flow as you talked about earlier, which is that's how the market works. But if you're one of those smaller operators, a target that you might want to have in mind is, the psychology of these transactions. It just is real. It's a factor. If you can get over $1 million in EBITDA, that's going to benefit you. So that might be a target to keep in mind. And then again, every sort of round number that you can get past, it's going to help you. If you can go from 1 million to 5 million in EBITDA, if you can go from 10 million to get above 10 or 20 million in revenue, those kinds of round numbers, they just lock you into a nicer neighborhood, so to speak. So those are some things to think about.
100%. Yeah, it's the EBITDA number, how fast you're growing, and your profitability. So if a business that's growing at 5% with 5% margin is just going to be a different animal than something that's growing at 25% at 15% EBITDA margin. So anything you can do to either grow faster or be more efficient, there's outsized returns on what the business is worth. And the sooner you do that, the longer history you have of that, the more they believe the story. And at the end of the day, you're selling. Just like you're selling to a customer, this is a customer. You're selling to a customer that just happens to be buying businesses. That's their job. And so
it happens to be your biggest sales meeting of your life.
That's right. So going it prepped and going it with, polishing up the asset, polishing up that car before you sell it to someone, before they come to your house to take a look at it, you put it through the car wash. It's the same type of thing. So.
Taylor and Ryan, is there I'm sure we have some contractors that are like, I haven't been contacted by private equity. I'm running a profitable business. Is there a proactive way to get the attention of private equity? And in that same vein, what is private equity doing to go find these folks, right? What are they looking at? Who are they talking to? And how does someone become, essentially cold called, right, to want to buy the business?
Yeah. Well, there's two things come to my mind. If you aren't getting these calls or you're wanting to get more of them, call one of us. We know a bunch of people in the space. Frankly, they always ask us if we know good businesses. And so it's like everything else, word of mouth. In the same way you put a roof on and someone says, who did that? And they tell you, oh, this company was great. They treated me right. They gave me a fair price. The world is built on networks, and this is no different. So reach out to us. We'd happy to help. Won't even try to sell you one click, right? At the end of the day, we love talking about businesses, and we love helping people grow their businesses. And also your online presence, right? They're out there at the end of the day, looking at reviews, looking at, on Google, searching a particular area. They're out there acting almost like a customer, and they're reaching out to people that they're finding in a particular space, size, et cetera. So the more of a presence you have online, the higher likelihood that they're gonna see you and reach out.
Yeah, no question about that. And John, I think one thing to keep in mind is that this business is very fragmented, meaning there's a lot of small players. Yeah. It's not. It's an easy business to get into, which is part of the beauty of it. And so you got a lot of small players. So don't have your feelings hurt if private equity is not reaching out to you, because the reality is, if I was in a private equity role and I just picked up, I went to Google and started dialing every operator that is under the sun just in the DFW area, it'd be a long time before I called everybody. And it's also super hard to get information on who's better. It's not obvious when you're sitting in an office and reaching out halfway across the country. It's not obvious who's bigger, who's better, who's interested, who's in the market, who's not. And so, to Ryan's point, the best thing that you can do to raise your profile is network your way into those firms. And reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to have a conversation and happy to help in the positioning and the process.
Love that. Both of you, are big book readers. Is there who do you guys go to, or where is there a book or like a Bible, for private equity where it talks about just kind of the basics, or is there, what additional resources are out there that you guys, aside from this awesome podcast episode, that contractors or, could dive into? I'm putting you on the spot, so I don't know if you need to pull up your Amazon library and.
I'll tell you the first one that comes to mind is I think I've got the title right. This is a true story. It's a telling of a big transaction that I think that was in the 70s or 80s. The name of the book is Barbarians at the Gate. And it is a great read, and it just really helps to understand. Now, this was a massive transaction. So,
great book though.
Back in the early days of KKR, which is, I think is credited with creating the leveraged buyout or the private equity structure. So, really great book, and I think it does offer some good insight, sort of into the what the process looks like, some of the psychology of it, some of the nuance of it, and it's entertaining. So I highly recommend that book.
One of my side is Secrets of Sand Hill Road. Scott Cooper. It's more on the venture capital side, but it talks about how venture capital firms, which are like private equity firms, they just invest in smaller, earlier stage companies, how they put money to work. And a lot of the concepts are the same for both sides. It's just the size of companies they purchase. So either one of those are great reads.
I'm a big fan lately of, I say lately, the last several years, just being able to dial up podcasts that I had never heard of. And I do that anytime that that I'm trying to get smart on a particular topic. Is I'll go search up podcasts. I don't have one specific podcast in mind that really speaks to the private equity process or selling a business kind of process, but I'm sure you can find a lot of good ones.
Yeah,
love that. Well, and we also at One Click have just created our own ebook guide that takes a lot of the tips and tricks and actionable next steps, that we discussed on today's podcast in a PDF format. So if anyone listening would like a copy of that, we have it on our website, or you can reach out to marketing@oneclickcontractor.com and we'd love to send you a copy. Ryan, Taylor, great in-depth conversation. Thanks for having you two on again. If you haven't already, please subscribe and follow for more business growth insights for contractors. Until next time, cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.